Okay, what's going on, everybody? So this is going to be the Sabbath School lesson and the Sabbath School summary. I'm just going to give you guys, it's going to be typically about 5 to 8 minutes. We'll see how this one runs because I'm going to do a little bit of an introduction because it's a new quarterly book. But let's basically go ahead and dive right in. The new quarterly book is going to be the book of Genesis. And book of Genesis has a lot of great things in it. So hopefully we learn a lot from here. Let me give actually a background just before we dive in. So Moses writes this book, and if you know about Moses already, he's this guy who's a Hebrew. He's a part of the Israelites, but he ends up basically in the Egyptian palace, and he basically is raised as an Egyptian. Moses is knowing that there's a calling on his life from God, that he's going to lead the Israelites out of captivity, out of Egypt. But he's waiting for like 40 years and nothing ever happens. And all of a sudden he decides to strike out on his own, and he ends up killing an Egyptian to try to signal to the Israelites, hey, like let's revolt. I'm on your side. God has given us the victory. But it doesn't really work out very well. And he ends up pretty much running away into the wilderness because the Egyptians are now about to kill him, and the Israelites did not raise up and try to revolt at all. So it's a terrible story. So now Moses in the actual wilderness, and he's there. All these things going on in his head, and he's trying to figure out how, is his calling still going to happen? Has he completely lost it? Whatever it may be. And as he's reflecting on his own history. And that's what you end up with the book of Genesis. He starts to write out from the story of creation, this promise that weeds all the way down from Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, all the way down to him, and the Israelites are in captivity. And he's knowing that God is going to rescue his people, but his big question is God going to rescue his people through me after I messed up trying to do God's will? So remember that as you're going through the book of Genesis. So let's start this thing off. As we go through the first lesson, the first lesson's memory verse is Genesis chapter 1 and verse 1. It says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Okay, so looking at Saturday and Sunday, we're going to kind of mold that together a little bit going into Monday. The main point that the author is trying to get out here to you is that God is omnipotent. He's all powerful. He's this great God that can do just about anything. And he's essentially outside of his creation. He's huge. He can do anything. At the same time, what you have here is a God that's not just so powerful that he's distant. He's also very personal with you. And so he wants to have a personal relationship. So he's all powerful, but he also wants to have a personal relationship. So that there's this uniqueness of God. It's interesting to have this phone in my hand, but these are my notes, by the way. So you have this picture of God that's all powerful, but he's wanting to at the same time be very personal. And that's what the author is basically getting out to you in the first Sabbath and Sunday type lesson. So as we go into Monday, he's going to switch it up a little bit and start to focus on actual creation itself, that it did not happen over a span of hundreds or thousands of years or millions of years. This is going to get you straight into the debate of the creation versus evolution debate. So he doesn't get really deep into this. I recommend you not to, overtake your entire Sabbath school lesson with that day. But he is going to get into that a little bit just to really instate that, it's not a million of year approach. It's not 7 million years. It's not 7,000. It's 7 literal days. And so you can start to discuss that a little bit. But like I said, don't kill yourself on that one day because there's a lot more coming. Tuesday is going to get into actually more the rest of God, the Sabbath. One of the things he's going to point out is Luke chapter 13 and verse 13 through 16. It's going to be a story about a lady who came to Jesus to be healed. Jesus healed her, and the Pharisees just went crazy. I can't believe you healed her on the Sabbath. She should have came another day. And so Jesus tells them, like, listen, if you can take your ox or your donkey or whatever and take it out and give it water, why can't this woman who's a child of Abraham, a child of the promise, come on the Sabbath and be healed, right? You're basically taking care of animals better than you take care of humans. So Jesus is really trying to get out here. Don't let God's rest or the Sabbath be a burden to you. It was never meant to be that way. Okay, now we're at Wednesday. So Wednesday is going to be more about talking about the likeness of God, mankind being created in his image or his likeness. Look at Genesis chapter 1 and verse 27. It says, God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. Now, the whole point that the author is really trying to bring out on Wednesday is the fact that the Hebrew word that illustrates likeness or image isn't specifically talking about physical attributes. It's talking more about abstract or more about characteristics of a person. So it's not like mankind was literally created in the physical image of God, but more about the characteristics of God was implanted in humanity. And so you can have a discussion around that. Make sure that you have that view. Thursday is going to switch up into the duty of mankind. And this you can go over to Genesis chapter 2 in verse 15 through 17 and read that. Basically, you're going to get what the duty of man was, which is making sure that you have dominion, you cultivate the ground, that you're taking care of things around you. At the same time, he's going to get into you can eat of any tree in the garden except for this one. So the author is going to bring out that everything good has its limits. You can't just have something good and not have any limits to it. Everything has a limit to it. And so you can kind of talk about standards and limits of things. If you want something to, if you want to have a good time somewhere, there has to be a certain amount of order. And that's really what he talks about there. So basically, that's the overview of the Sabbath School lesson. I want to add something in here because it's a little bit of an interesting thought that maybe you haven't thought of before. So in Genesis chapter 2, you're going to find, of course, Adam is created and the duty of man essentially is given. What's interesting here is that God says that basically it's not good for man to be alone. That's a problem. So God is creating a perfect creation, but in his perfect creation, he recognizes that there's something that's not good. And Adam, he's going around, he's naming the animals, right? And each animal has like a partner with it. He's seeing the animals have partners and friends and things that are like them around. And Adam looks around and he doesn't see anyone like him. No partner for him, no equal for him. He recognizes that there's something wrong. But yet, what's interesting is that God says that there's something wrong. God says, hey, there's a problem here. It's not good for man to be alone. But God does not automatically create Eve just because he saw that there was a problem. Adam is still going around, naming all the animals, cultivating the ground, doing all his work, even after God says and recognizes, hey, it's not good for man to be alone. And there's a lesson in that, because sometimes we think that when we recognize we have problems, and when God recognizes we have problems, automatically God is supposed to fix it. God is supposed to do something to somehow change our situation. But in creation, in perfection, you're seeing that there was something wrong in this perfect creation, and yet God doesn't automatically change it. Adam is still left to do the work of God, to do the will of God, without a guarantee that God is going to change that aspect of his life, that he's really needing something, right? So, and maybe you have something in your life, financial, career-wise, maybe it might be a relationship or anything else. There's something in your life that's not good, and you're wanting God to change it, just like maybe Adam. And God recognizes that it's not good. But because of, the way we think, we often stop doing the will of God. And that's the one thing Adam did not do. He kept doing the will of God, kept cultivating the ground, kept naming the animal, kept basically doing everything, even though he didn't have a guarantee that God was going to change that aspect of his life. And it's the same also with us. So that's something that's a little bit different that you find in creation. It is a way that God worked with Adam, and it's the same way that he also works with us. God is going to take care of that thing in your life. He just may not do it automatically when you recognize that you have a problem. He sees the problem. He'll eventually get there, but continue doing his work instead. I'll see you next time for the next lesson.